Program Studi Pendidikan Bahasa Inggris adalah salah satu program studi di Fakultas Keguruan dan Ilmu Pendidikan di Universitas Sultan Ageng Tirtayasa atau Untirta. Prodi ini berada di kampus C Untirta, yaitu di Jalan Ciwaru nomor 25, Kota Serang, Banten. Sementara prodi-prodi di fakultas lain berlokasi di kampus Untirta Pakupatan, Sindang Sari, dan Cilegon.
Program Studi Pendidikan Bahasa Inggris berdiri sejak tahun 2001 dan telah menghasilkan lulusan yang berkompeten di bidangnya. Hal ini selaras dengan visi dari pendidikan bahasa Inggris, yaitu terwujudnya program studi pendidikan bahasa Inggris yang menghasilkan calon tenaga pendidik yang maju, bermutu, berkarakter, inovatif, dan berdaya saing dalam kebersamaan pada tahun 2025.
Proses pembelajaran Prodi Pendidikan Bahasa Inggris dilaksanakan di 4 ruang perkuliahan di Gedung A lantai 1. Setiap ruang kelas dilengkapi fasilitas LCD, whiteboard, pendingin ruangan, dan Wi-Fi. Ruangan kelas ini dapat menampung maksimal 45 mahasiswa. Selain ruang perkuliahan, di gedung ini juga terdapat ruang dosen dan ruang tenaga kependidikan. Setiap dosen menempati satu ruangan berukuran 4 meter persegi yang dapat digunakan untuk melaksanakan kegiatan persiapan pengajaran, penelitian, dan pembimbingan akademik dan tugas akhir. Selain ruang dosen, terdapat ruang sidang untuk melaksanakan seminar proposal dan sidang akhir. Untuk menunjang proses pengembangan akademik, karakter, dan keterampilan civitas akademika, Prodi Pendidikan Bahasa Inggris memiliki laboratorium komputer, laboratorium micro-teaching, dan laboratorium bahasa yang terdapat di gedung laboratorium terpadu. Di dalam laboratorium bahasa, terdapat ruang baca sebagai penunjang referensi bagi mahasiswa selain perpustakaan Fakultas Keguruan dan Ilmu Pendidikan dan perpustakaan pusat. Semua perpustakaan ini dilengkapi dengan buku, jurnal, proceeding, dan koleksi skripsi dan tesis. Tersedia pula jurnal internasional yang dilanggan secara online oleh Untirta. Di antaranya adalah Cambridge, Springer, Wiley, dan Elsevier. Adapun pusat data
Welcome to the 7th Annual International Seminar on English Language Teaching, AISELT 2022. With the theme, Mediating Multilingualism in English Language Classroom, 26th of September 2022, Universitas Sultan Ageng Tirtayasa, Banten, Indonesia. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am Dian Putri Islami, will be the master of ceremony of this event. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Let's state our gratitude to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala who has given us blessings so we can gather here at the 7th Annual International Seminar on English Language Teaching, AISELT 2022, held by English Education Department, Faculty of Teacher Training and Education, Universitas Sultan Ageng Tirtayasa. We'd like to welcome our distinguished guest, the Honorable Rector of Universitas Sultan Ageng Tirtayasa, Profesor Dr. Insinyur Haji Fatah Sulaiman, STMT, the Honorable Dean of Education Faculty of Universitas Sultan Ageng Tirtayasa, Dr. Dase Erwin Juansah, M.Pd, the Honorable Head of English Education Department, Rahman Hakim, M.Pd, the Honorable of Chairperson of 7 AISELT 2022, Dr. Aisyah Hamidiyah, M.Pd. And also all distinguished keynote speaker and invited speakers. Professor Dr. Setiono Sugiharto from Atmajaya University, Dr. Udi Samanhudi M.Pd from Universitas Sultan Ageng Tirtayasa, Dr. Aziz Japar Sidik M.Pd from Universitas Sultan Ageng Tirtayasa, Dr. Siti Nurfaidah M.Pd from IAIN Kendari, Dr. Sultan Turkan from Queen Belfast University, and Dr. Nermin Al-Sorman from Colorado State University. And welcome to all paper presenters and participants from various universities in Indonesia. Thank you for participating in the 7th AISELT seminar. Before we move to the next agenda, we would like to introduce you to our local culture. We proudly present Banten Jawara Welcoming Dance. Please give the best reaction for the welcoming dance Banten Jawara. So Banten Jawara is a welcoming dance that tells us about how people in Banten attitude. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, the next agenda is welcoming speech. The first speech will be delivered by the chairperson of the 7th AISELT, to Dr. Aisyah Hamidiyah M.Pd. The floor is yours.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. The Excellency Rector of Universitas Sultan Ageng Tirtayasa, Profesor Dr. Haji Fatah Sulaiman ST.M.T., the Honorable Dean of Teacher Training and Education Faculty, Dr. Dase Erwin Juansah M.Pd., the Honorable Head of International Office, Dr. Udi Samanhudi M.Pd., the Honorable Head of English Study Program, Rahman Hakim M.Pd., all distinguished speakers, presenters, participants, and committees. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. All praises to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, the greatest and the most merciful, who has given us the opportunity to gather in this seminar. This seminar is the seventh seminar held by English Education Department, Teacher Training and Educational Faculty, Universitas Sultan Ageng Tirtayasa. We have shared knowledge and experiences in the areas of English teaching learning and all relate to it. This year's theme is Mediating Multilingualism in English Language Classroom, Prospects and Challenges. The theme is chosen as it relates to the situation in the global world education. Ladies and gentlemen, Indonesia is a country that cannot avoid global influences, and we are not taught to avoid those influences, but to prepare for them and become part of globality. In the world of primary and secondary education, this is known as the concept of 21st century competence. The education prepares graduates who are not only able to use IT facilities, but also use them for self-development and the philosophy of Bhinneka Tunggal Ika in the spirit of global diversity as it is formulated in the Pancasila Student Profile and Tunas Pancasila. In relation to 21st century competence and global diversity, we as an institution for producing English teacher candidates should move and be ahead in preparing prospective graduates, as well as ourselves as lecturers and researchers, so that all can enter the future space without hesitate to face the development of knowledge and other global phenomena. Diversity is certainly closely related to our own multilingualism in Indonesia, and at the same time with our multilingualism as citizens of the world. What are our chances? What are the challenges for us? This seminar is part of how we answer both. Those we invite in this seminar are experts in the field. We are honored to have Professor Dr. Setiono Sugiharto from Atmajaya, Dr. Udi Samanhudi from Untirta, Dr. Nermin Al-Shorman from Colorado State, Dr. Sultan from Queen's Belfast, and Dr. Aziz Jafar Siddiq from Untirta. This year we have a new section. We invited the featured speaker to share her knowledge and experiences, specifically in research methods, Ibu Dr. Siti Nurfaidah M.Pd. On behalf of the committee, allow me to express our sincere gratitude to have great speakers in the seminar today. We also express our gratitude to the presenters who share their ideas and to all participants who join in the seminar. To all committee members, if there is a word means more than grateful, I will use the word to show my feeling to you all. The seminar is our pride. Let's appreciate our hard work. Finally, we hope this seminar gives us chances to collaborate and inspire each other. Much success for you, and please enjoy the seminar. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
The next agenda is listening to our national anthem, Indonesia Raya. The next is the speech from the Dean of Teacher Training and Education Faculty, Universitas Sultan Ageng Tirtayasa, the Honorable Dr. Dase Erwin Juansah, M.Pd. The floor is yours.
Oke. Terima kasih pembawa acara yang saya banggakan. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Izinkan saya menggunakan bahasa Indonesia sesuai dengan bidang atau home base saya, Pak Rektor Pendidikan Bahasa Indonesia, Prof. Setiono. Yang saya hormati Profesor Dr. Insinyur Haji Fatah Sulaiman STMT, Rektor Universitas Sultan Ageng Tirtayasa. Yang saya hormati Profesor Setiono Sugiharto, narasumber pada kegiatan hari ini. Terima kasih, tentu saya sampaikan atas nama pimpinan fakultas mengucapkan terima kasih yang sebesar-besarnya Prof. Setiono berkenan hadir di kegiatan teman-teman pendidikan bahasa Inggris FKIP Untirta. Narasumber yang lain Pak Ketua PLI, Pak Udi Samanhudi, PhD, Pak Dr. Ejis, Dr. Rahman dari Universitas Colorado, Dr. Sultan dan Bu Ida, kalau tidak salah, Bu Siti Nur Farida dari UIN Kendari, serta seluruh hadirin tentunya para dosen pendidikan bahasa Inggris yang hadir secara offline maupun online, teman-teman panitia yang sudah berusaha keras menyelenggarakan kegiatan hari ini, tidak lupa seluruh hadirin yang hadir, baik mahasiswa, guru, dan dosen, serta praktisi di Zoom yang diselenggarakan oleh Pendidikan Bahasa Inggris. Mari kita panjatkan puji dan syukur kehadirat Allah SWT. Alhamdulillah di pagi hari ini kita bisa baik secara luring maupun secara daring. Sholawat serta salam semoga tetap tercurah pada junjungan kita Nabi besar Muhammad SAW. Berbicara tentang Indonesia dan tantangan masa depan dalam konteks pembelajaran bahasa Inggris ini merupakan sesuatu yang sangat besar. Saya secara konsen Pak Setiono memang mendalami, kebetulan saya di Pendidikan Bahasa Indonesia dan memang bidang ilmu yang saya pelajari adalah pragmatik dan sosiolinguistik. Jadi ketika hari ini saya diminta mengantarkan Pak Rektor mengantarkan kegiatan pada hari ini, tentu menjadi sebuah tantangan yang menarik ketika berbicara multilingualisme dalam konteks pembelajaran, baik dalam konteks pembelajaran bahasa Indonesia dan konteks pembelajaran bahasa asing tentunya. Kenapa saya katakan menarik? Karena memang pada dunia nyata atau pada konteks pembelajaran berbicara tentang multilingualisme ini akan berdampak pada banyak hal. Dalam ilmu sosiolinguistik misalnya ada istilah menghasilkan sebuah gejala penegatifan bahasa, atau dalam bahasa saya istilahnya gejala perusakan bahasa, yang harusnya misalnya bahasa Indonesianya benar, tetapi ketika dia sering menggunakan bahasa kedua ataupun bahasa yang ketiga, maka kedudukan bahasa Indonesianya dia dirusak. Maka dikenal dengan yang namanya istilah interferensi. Begitupun dalam konteks yang lain, misalnya terjadi gejala yang namanya campur kode ataupun alih kode. Nah ini tentunya menjadi tantangan yang luar biasa bagi kita ataupun bagi para guru atau mahasiswa yang suatu saat akan menjadi seorang guru. Kenapa menjadi tantangan luar biasa? Ini menjadi harus dipikirkan strategi atau teknik bagaimana membelajarkan calon guru, membelajarkan mahasiswa dengan latar belakang mahasiswa atau latar belakang guru yang berbeda bahasanya atau pembiasaan menggunakan bahasa yang lain selain menggunakan bahasa Indonesia ataupun bahasa asing ataupun bahasa daerah. Nah tentu ini menjadi tantangan luar biasa bagi kita Pak Rektor, terutama khususnya di FKIP yang berusaha mencetak calon-calon guru yang handal. Kebetulan sebagai bahan informasi Pak Setiono, Bapak Ibu hadirin, bahwa dari sejak tahun 2018 khususnya FKIP Untirta dipercaya atau diamanahi oleh kementerian untuk menyelenggarakan kegiatan PPG. Nah, saya kira dalam konteks menyiapkan calon-calon guru profesional, maka ini menjadi tantangan yang luar biasa bagi para dosennya juga. Artinya bagaimana harus mampu menghasilkan calon guru profesional, tentunya dosennya juga harus dosen profesional. Maka dalam konteks multilingualisme ini, saya berharap kegiatan seminar hari ini mampu memberikan jembatan yang baik, sehingga semua peserta, semua hadirin yang hadir dalam kegiatan hari ini mampu melihat tantangan dan hambatan ke depan untuk pembelajaran yang multilingualisme itu harus seperti apa. Nah, terkait dengan multilingualisme yang tadi yang disampaikan, ada juga beberapa hal yang lain yang harus disiapkan oleh calon seorang guru selain kemampuan menjembatani pembelajaran yang notabene siswa atau mahasiswanya berbasis multilingualisme. Ada hal yang lain juga yang harus, saya kira dalam konteks calon seorang guru itu tidak bisa ditinggalkan, yaitu 10 kemampuan dasar menjadi seorang guru yang harus dikuasai oleh calon guru ataupun mahasiswa yang kuliah di Fakultas Keguruan. Dari mulai kegiatan membuka sampai dengan kegiatan menutup pembelajaran itu penting untuk dikuasai. Selain dalam konteks hari ini, abad 21 juga tidak bisa diabaikan pembelajaran yang mampu memikirkan bagaimana kita menguasai teknologi informasi dan komunikasi. Seyogyanya ini mampu dikuasai oleh seluruh calon guru, khususnya pendidikan bahasa Inggris, bagaimana dia mampu mengelola dengan baik proses pembelajaran, proses pengolahan kelas, tetapi juga dia mampu menyajikan teknologi informasi komunikasi dalam konteks pembelajaran di kelas. Nah, ini saya kira nanti bisa disampaikan oleh narasumber. Saya kira dalam konteks hari ini adalah narasumber yang kompeten. Saya Prof Setiono, banyak buku yang saya baca terbitan dari para terpelajar di Unika yang terkait dengan sosio ataupun dengan pragmatik, yang mungkin ini bisa didadah untuk disampaikan pada teman-teman mahasiswa ataupun hadirin yang hadir dalam kegiatan hari ini. Nah, saya kira tantangan ini menjadi tantangan bersama teman-teman mahasiswa, Bapak Ibu guru, termasuk di dalamnya adalah dosen, bagaimana kita mampu menguasai proses pembelajaran yang yang hebat di abad 21 ini. Maka dalam konteks ini, seyogyanya calon mahasiswa, calon guru mampu menguasai 10 kemampuan dasar yang harus dimiliki oleh seorang guru, dan tidak lupa juga salah satunya adalah karena ini abad pembelajarannya abad 21, maka harus mampu menguasai teknologi informasi komunikasi sehingga proses pembelajaran di kelas tidak membosankan, murid ataupun mahasiswa nyaman belajar, dan secara secara kemampuan, tentu kemampuan mahasiswa dengan pembelajaran yang menyenangkan dan melibatkan teknologi informasi dan komunikasi, ini akan berdampak pada penguasaan dan kemampuan mahasiswa dengan baik. Izin berkenan Pak Rektor untuk membuat kegiatan pada hari ini. Mudah-mudahan kegiatan hari ini bermanfaat buat kita semua, tentunya selain bermanfaat buat teman-teman di Prodi Pendidikan Bahasa Inggris, khususnya adalah dosen juga mahasiswa, bermanfaat untuk semua yang hadir dalam kegiatan hari ini. Saya kira itu sebagai sambutan dari saya. Sekali lagi tentu Prof Setiono, hadirin narasumber, saya mengucapkan terima kasih atas kesediaan Bapak Ibu untuk menjadi narasumber, menjadi pendadar dalam kegiatan hari ini. Mudah-mudahan apa yang Bapak Ibu sampaikan dalam kegiatan hari ini memberikan manfaat yang luar biasa bagi kita semua. Izin Pak Rektor untuk membuka kegiatan hari ini. Terima kasih. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Dr. Dase, for the speech. And next, we would like to invite the Rector of Universitas Sultan Ageng Tirtayasa to deliver a welcoming speech and open the seminar officially. To the Honorable Professor Dr. Insinyur Haji Fatah Sulaiman STMT, the screen is yours.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Good morning, selamat pagi, salam sehat, salam sejahtera buat kita semua. Tadi mohon maaf karena host masih mute mic kami, jadi agak delay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Distinguished keynote speakers and speakers, Profesor Dr. Setiono Sugiharto from Atmajaya Indonesia University. Thank you. Dr. Udi Samanhudi from Untirta. Dr. Nirmin Al-Sorman from Colorado State University, USA. Dr. Sultan from Queen's University, Belfast, UK. And Dr. Aziz Japar Siddiq from Untirta, Indonesia. Distinguished guests, Dean of Faculty of Education and Teacher Training of Untirta, Vice Dean, Head of English Department of Untirta, and Head of a committee and team, ladies and gentlemen. Diringi rasa syukur kepada Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, Tuhan yang Maha Kuasa. Alhamdulillah kita bisa berkumpul di ruang virtual untuk hadir dalam agenda the 7th Annual International Seminar on English Language Teaching, AISELT 2022. On behalf of Universitas Sultan Ageng Tirtayasa, I would like to extend a warm welcome to all of you in the 7th AISELT 2022, and a big appreciation for the event. Kegiatan ini memiliki makna yang kuat dengan semangat Untirta Jawara untuk tetap secara berkelanjutan melakukan diseminasi ilmu pengetahuan kepada seluruh masyarakat. Ini juga dalam rangkaian kegiatan Dies Natalis Universitas Sultan Ageng Tirtayasa ke-41 dengan spirit yang kita bangun, inovasi, kolaborasi, harmonisasi, Untirta Jawara untuk Indonesia maju. Spirit of innovation and spirit of collaboration with other institutions, with Unika Atmajaya, Colorado State University, Queen's University of Belfast, and many more, to side by side in harmony for the greater good of Indonesia. Kami selalu yakin bahwa keberhasilan capaian pendidikan tinggi saat ini akan terus berlanjut atas inovasi dan kerjasama strategis antar stakeholders. And as a leading state university in Banten province and fast growing university in Indonesia, through this international seminar, Untirta consistently serves medium for the development of knowledge, particularly in area of English language and teaching. The 7th AISELT 2022, with the theme Mediating Multilingualism in English language classrooms, prospects and challenges, encourage us to realize that multilingualism is here and there exists. Seperti kita lakukan sekarang ini, mixing and switching bahasa Indonesia and English language. Dan tentu tantangannya ke depan terus dinamis dan terus berubah. Penerapannya tidak hanya sebatas di ruang kelas, bahkan kompleksitas akan muncul dengan hadirnya berbagai inovasi, teknologi, dan disrupsi sosial. Therefore, we must rediscover and revisit relevant reference of knowledge in such areas. Di balik tantangan tersebut, kita semua yakin akan ada peluang besar yang dapat kita raih, terutama dengan inovasi, kreativitas, growth mindset, dan kolaborasi dengan berbagai pihak. Ladies and gentlemen, I personally hope that the results of the academic discussion at the end will shed some light to the contribution of knowledge in ELT, particularly in Banten province. Moreover, through this international webinar, potential collaboration and professional communication among scholars, lecturers, and school teachers, students will be widely opened. To close my sentence, I will thank our committee of AISELT 2022 from English Department at Faculty of Education and Teacher Training, Universitas of Sultan Ageng Tirtayasa, for your endless hard work and incredible effort in preparing this webinar. Rekam jejak kebaikan kita dan kontribusi Bapak Ibu sekalian bagi pengembangan institusi dan ilmu pengetahuan sangat kami apresiasi. And finally, on behalf of Universitas Sultan Ageng Tirtayasa, by reciting Basmalah, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, I officially declare to open the 7th Annual International Seminar on English Language Teaching AISELT 2022 with the theme Multilingualism in English Classroom, Prospects and Challenge. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Terima kasih Pak Rektor.
Thank you for the speech from Professor Dr. Insinyur Haji Fatah Sulaiman STMT. And the next is praying that will be led by Dr. Ahmad Baihaqi, M.Pd. So Dr. Ahmad Baihaqi, M.Pd., the floor is yours.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. A'udzubillahi minasyaitonirrajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin. Allahumma shalli ala sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi washabihi ajmain. Amin ya rabbal alamin. Hamdan syakirin, hamdan na'imin, hamdan yafi ni'mah wa yukafi mazidah. Ya rabbana lakal hamdu kama yanbaghi li jalali wajhikal karim wa li sultan. Allahumma shalli ala sayyidina Muhammadin salatan tunjina biha min jamil ahwali wal afat wa taqdilana biha jamil hajat wa tutahhirna biha min jamil sayyat wa tarfa'na biha innaka darajat wa tuballighuna asal ghayat min jamil khairati fil hayati wa ba'da al-mamat bi rahmatika ya arhamar rahimin. Allahumma ighfir lana dunubana wa li walidayna warhamhuma kama rabbana shighara wa li jamil huquqi wajibati alayhi wa li jamil muslimina wal muslimat wal mu'minina wal mu'minat al ahya'i minhum wal amwat innaka sami'un qaribun mujibud da'wat. Allahumma nas'aluka ilman nafi'an wa rizqan thayyiban wa amalan mutaqabbalan. Allahumma nas'aluka ilman nafi'an wa rizqan thayyiban wa amalan mutaqabbalan. Allahumma nas'aluka ilman nafi'an wa rizqan thayyiban wa amalan mutaqabbalan. Rabbana la tuzigh qulubana ba'da idh hadaytana wa hab lana min ladunka rahmah innaka antal wahhab. Rabbana atina fid dunya hasanah wa fil akhirati hasanah wa qina adzabannar. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun wassalamun alal mursalin walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Dr. Ahmad Baihaqi, M.Pd. Before we go to the main agenda, I would like to invite all keynote speakers, paper presenters, and all participants to turn on the camera and take a picture together. Don't forget to make your sweet smile for a while. Okay, we can start from the slide one. Slide 2. And slide 3.
Ulangi lagi Pak Ijis, ada yang nggak masuk ya Pak Ijis Pak, itu Pak David kasihan. Iya.
Okay.
Izin buka acara lagi, Pak Udi, Pak Dekan.
Ya, turun Prof.
Plenary session 1. So we invite Dr. Siti Aisyah M.Hum.
Thank you. Terima kasih Pak Dekan atas kehadirannya pada hari ini. Thank you very much indeed. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning. Belum kedengaran suara good morningnya. Good morning, selamat pagi.
Good morning.
We are talking about multilingualism. Of course, sometimes we do code mixing and code switching in our everyday speaking. Good morning, Professor Dr. Setiono Sugiharto. Thank you very much indeed for your time to give a keynote speaker for today's seminar. Let me introduce Professor Dr. Setiono Sugiharto. He is a professor at Faculty of Education and Languages, doctoral program in Applied English Linguistics at Atmajaya Catholic University of Indonesia. He earned his doctoral degree in Applied English Linguistics at Atmajaya Catholic University in 2012, and he earned Master of Art in 2003, and he earned Bachelor of Art in Teaching English as a Foreign Language from Atmajaya Catholic University. He is a full professor in Atmajaya University in 2018 until present. I have read many published articles in international journal. Probably all of the audience can search in Google Scholars. So I also get many insights from you, Prof. Setiono. His expertise is in thesis proposal writing, critical reading and writing, and current issue in applied linguistics. Kalau saya sebutkan semua prestasinya mungkin akan 1 hari penuh ini Pak Prof. Setiono. He is also a best graduate student in doctoral degree in 2012. Without further ado, please welcome Professor Dr. Setiono Sugiharto to deliver his keynote speech. Silakan, Prof.
Selamat pagi, salam sejahtera. Good morning, everyone. Terima kasih Pak Rektor, Pak Dekan, dan juga panitia yang telah bersedia mengundang saya pada pagi hari untuk sharing on the idea of multilingualism. Allow me to share my screen, please. Can everyone see the screen? Is it clear to everyone?
Yes, it's very clear, Prof.
Okay, thank you. I would like to talk today about the idea of the ordinariness of multilingualisms in our context, that's in the nation's context. I will start from the communities and then go to the classrooms. My premise is that multilingualism is not a novel concept, it's not a novel notion. It's ordinary, it's banal, it's a commonplace. So there's nothing new about the idea of multilingualism. Given that our country Indonesia is a multi-ethnic, multicultural, and multilingual country. Therefore, multilingualism is not a new or it's not a novel concept. Now, I would like you to have a look before I start my discussions on the idea of the ordinariness of multilingualism. Let's have a look at a very common phenomenon, very commonplace phenomenon in our context. If you look at this slide, I took this from the Jakarta Post, one of the leading English newspapers in Indonesia. And it was, this is the headline written in 2017. If you look at the headline here, at that time, South Korean President Moon was invited by the Indonesian president, Pak Jokowi, and both of the leaders paid a visit to Tanah Abang, Jakarta. And if you look at the headline here, Moon and Jokowi go blusukan. Okay, so maybe you wonder here, why is it the case that the journalists purposefully mesh linguistic codes or mix or mingle linguistic codes, go blusukan? Blusukan is roughly translated into impromptu visit. Okay, that is President Jokowi is well known for his blusukan. Okay, so that's why the headlines, the journalists here wrote Moon and Jokowi go blusukan, simply mixing the code, right? So maybe you find it abnormal in terms of the norms, in terms of the standard norm, okay? Because if you look up at the dictionary, there is no such thing as go blusukan, okay? But this headline was purposely written, okay, go blusukan, instead of what is it? Instead of, let's say, impromptu visit, okay, which is a rough equivalent of blusukan. Now, this is from the newspaper, the headline from the newspaper. I want you again to, I came across of this when I visited one of the malls here in Tangerang. And surprisingly, I read this in front of the one of the restaurants. Okay, shrimp sambal sensation. Okay, I guess you know what this means, right? Shrimp sambal sensations. This sambal terasi, right? But again, here we see the deliberate code mix, the deliberate meshing of both Indonesian sambal, right? And then we also have English terminologies, yes, shrimp and sensation, okay? This is a commonplace, okay? We encounter this in our everyday life. So this reflects, okay, multilingual individuals, okay, who are always eager to mix or to mesh linguistic codes. Another thing, I hope I'm not going to make you hungry with this, okay? Now you can see here packet extra hemat, burger with egg, right? And you see here, it is also commonplace, right? So deliberate mixing, deliberate meshing of different linguistic codes. Indonesia, paket extra hemat, cheeseburger with egg, right? This also reflects that multilingualism, the use of more than one languages is very common in our context. Another example here, okay? When you visit a mall in the Greater Jakarta, okay, both in either in Tangerang or Depok, okay, and Jakarta, you see here to the zoos, right? This also is a common sight, okay, to the zoos, right? And here another example here is that maaf, sementara hanya melayani take away, right? So during the pandemic, many restaurants offered a takeaway service. Okay, they did not allow the customers to eat on site, but they only provide a takeaway service. But here, as you can observe in this example, takeaway has been modified into the or you can say localized, okay, in terms of the spelling here becomes take away, right? Even though the pronunciations may a bit similar, but if you look at the spelling, this is has been undergone spelling alterations, okay? Take away. Another interesting example is that, as you can see here, maybe it may sound a little bit playful, okay? Like a fried chicken, okay, kulit chicken, and checker chicken, milkshakes, means milkshakes actually, right? But that's the ordinariness of multilingualism. So people can mix different linguistic codes, different, they deliberately mingle different linguistic codes in order to suit their own communicative purposes. Now, the last examples that I came across, this is from one of the telegrams, Wendy Walters. And if you look at this message, you can see again here the mixing or meshing of both Indonesians and English. Hi guys, aku hargain semua yang udah speak up ke aku, but I don't think I can take any more evidences. Jadi aku rasa udah cukup ya untuk evidence-nya, teman-teman. Thank you for your concern. Okay, you see here, this is another example of how ordinary, how banal, how commonplace multilingual is, but from the perspective of communities, meaning that our communities are multilingual individuals. There's no denying about it. Now, David Crystal observes that most communication in English occurs among speakers from the outer and expanding circles. So it's not just communication in English, but it's just a mixing. It's just a meshing of both English and other languages. Now, English reigns, but native speakers are losing ground. So this is the decline of the native speaker. What does the examples that I have shown told us? First, as I have articulated before, multilingualism has long been with us. Okay, Indonesia consists of a wealth of local languages. And we speak Indonesians, but at the same time, we also mingle the Indonesian language with the local dialects, right? That's multilingualism. Now, in terms of contact with the English language, multilingual practices are banal. These practices are banal, ordinary, mundane, and remarkable. I get the idea from Dovchins and Jerry Wonley, right? It means that there's nothing exotic, there's nothing new about multilingualism. We don't have to dispute okay, about the fact that our country is multilingual. Okay, and multilingualism is everywhere. There's nothing novel, nothing special, nothing exotic, and even nothing significant in such practices. It is commonplace. Now, as for the global spread of English is worldwide, English has committed into other localities, resulting in what Alasti Pennycook calls transcultural flow of Englishes. So the English language has seeped into many domains in many other localities, including in our context, right? This concept has been termed transcultural flow of Englishes. When English enters and moves to a new territory beyond its place of origin, there is the possibility that it's not only borrowed, like in the examples that I have shown before, but it's also remade, right? Repurposed, and even localized by the inhabitants of the new territory. Like the examples of shrimp sambal sensation, like the examples of go blusukan, for instance. So in this case, that English is not just simply borrowed in a new territory, but it's also remade. Okay, it's meshed, right? It's mingled, it's mixed with local languages. Okay, it is repurposed and localized by the inhabitants of the new territory. So English, in other words, has become deterritorialized, right? There is no territoriality anymore. Okay, so English has been deterritorialized. English, when English is borrowed and repurposed and remade, English has become language used in trans-local context. So what does this mean? That if English has been used in trans-local context, means that communication is not a solitary mental activity anymore. Okay, communication is an act of meaning-making activity. So the examples I have shown before reflects the fact that communication is an act of meaning-making. It is a practice, it's a social practice mediated by ecological and contextual affordances. Even though we see the difference, like native speakers may find odd to see go busukan, and native speakers similarly may find it also awkward to see sambal sensations, shrimp sambal sensations, right? So that's linguistically different, right? But that's not a deficit. Okay, linguistic difference is not a deficit, but is a resource. Now the problem is that when we contextualize multilingualisms in the school context, then here we see that schools have become sites for the perpetuation of colonial mentality. I will discuss this later. This is not my own term. I quote this from another scholar. What does this mean? That you see here that we know the power of educational institutions in reproducing monolingualist ideologies and dominant norms in the society. You may see here that many schools strictly impose the so-called the English-only policy in school. A study by Juansah in some 2016 has revealed that most parents want their children to be taught exclusively in English. not in the student's native language, right? Okay, this is the desire. Okay, Stephen Creyson calls this the English fever. That is an overwhelming desire to acquire English at the expense of the student's native language. So you see here, this is the strict impositions of the English-only policy in most schools in our context. Students are not allowed to use their home languages, right? Speaking in home languages can be seen as a sign of lack of mastery in English. And in certain cases, the schools also impose penalty, even though this is light penalty, okay? The students are fined for not conversing in English. Now, Indonesia is not the sole case of this phenomenon. I read an article written by Ruani Tupas. Ruani Tupas is a Filipino scholar, and he wrote that in the Philippines, a student who was caught red-handed conversing in the local dialect, in the Filipino local dialect. This is called Ilocano dialect. And this student was unfortunately expelled from the school because he spoke in local dialect, while the schools strictly impose the English-only policy. So Indonesia is not just the sole case, right? We can also find in other countries like in the Philippines, but even in the Nepal, okay, in the Nepal. Now, for further information related to what I have just explained here, you can read my article published in the Routledge Handbook of Educational Linguistics. This is on chapter 17, okay? And the title is Disentangling Linguistic Imperialism in English Language Education in the Indonesian context. This is available if you can browse in the internet. Now, what does this all reflect? First, this is when schools always impose the English-only policy at the expense of the students' home languages. Then this is what Piak calls this colonial mentality. Okay, so colonial mentality is a sort of psychology of inferiority constructed by the oppressive language policies and unequal socio-political structures. So again, here schools have become sites where they impose oppressive language policies, right? You must speak English. You are not allowed to speak students' home languages. Okay, you are not allowed to mix languages because when you speak English, then it must be English. Okay, as the standard, the only standard known. Okay, and students are not allowed, like in the case of in the Philippines, right? When the students was expelled from school simply because he or she spoke Ilocano, okay, the local language. Now, colonial mentality is a manifestation of a deficit ideology that justifies inequalities as the outcome of deficiencies, intellectual, economic, and political of the marginalized group. If you read Sandra Dovchin's recent article, Sandra Dovchin introduced the concept of linguistic racism. And Sandra Dovchin is a Mongolian scholar, And recently, she wrote in a opinion editorial in the case of Mongolian Mongolian students studying English in Australia who almost had a suicidal thought. Okay, these students almost committed suicide simply because he or she was mocked. Okay, simply because his accent in English, okay, is not perfect. So his or her colleagues mock him or her, and he almost got a suicidal side. Simply, this is called linguistic racism. Okay, now if this colonial mentality persists in our context, and if we perpetuate linguistic racism among our students here, then the consequence is what Spanish philosopher Bonaventura de Santos calls this epistemicide. What is epistemicide? Epistemicide is a massive waste of social experience, and particularly in the massive destructions of ways of knowing that did not fit the dominant epistemological canon. Okay, so again, if we just simply deny our multilingual students to use their own resources, their home languages, and then their own language resources, then in the long-term goal, we will commit what Santos calls epistemicide. Now, just quick discussions on the implications for classroom practice. By saying this, I'm not suggesting that we oppose standard English. No, okay. Vibrant multilingual practices are beneficial for classroom practices. Teachers can help enhance student strategies and dispositions they have developed in community practices. Okay, acquiring standard English is a must. However, we need to make our students aware that standard English is only standard English is not the only variety. Okay, standard English is the only variety among many emerging varieties of Englishes. Language teaching goals needs to equip the students with communicative strategies or the ability for practices, okay, in places as part of the effort to enhance their spatial repertoire, like the examples from the community practice I've shown before, right? Now, this includes considerations of helping students to strategically align their acquired linguistic knowledge with the diversity of semiotic resources from community practices. Closely related to this is the importance of teachers' appreciation of diverse emergent varieties of resources which students bring with in classroom learning and interaction. Alternative varieties or discourses a student may exhibit in their learning should not be hastily judged as mere defiant forms or linguistic deficit, hampering language acquisitions process. This, nevertheless, by no means implies the repudiation of the privileged standard variety, which students might be passionate to learn. In fact, a dominant discourse community compels students to master the standard variety. I'm not opposing this, okay? Otherwise, they will be marginalized and ostracized in entering the new community. Again, mastering standard English is a must, but not to the at the expense of other varieties, other emerging varieties. Now, conversely, simply dismissing the emergent creative varieties students might unpredictably employ during classroom learning and interaction can actually work against the goal of helping students develop an accurate understanding of how the English language works and how it changes over time. Today, on being user of English, one has to be really multi-dialectical. To be proficient, one has to be multi-dialectical. Okay, students in the context of multilingualism, students needs to be able to shuttle among languages in order to be multi-dialectical. As we docents has said, no one has exclusive rights to the language. Anyone who speaks it has the right to own it. This is the message, okay, from one of the renowned linguists. No one has exclusive rights to the language. Anyone who speaks it has the right to own it. As a final remark, in the context of multilingual, multi-ethnic, and multicultural classroom, so we are not just simply we just do not always impose a strict English only policy. Okay, the goal of language education is that to develop a resourceful speaker. Okay, a resourceful speaker who can make use of their own linguistic resources without being strictly imposed, without being strictly limited, okay, by the English only policy. Thank you very much for your attention. I am now done. Terima kasih. Terima kasih semuanya. Silakan ke moderator.
Thank you.
To moderator.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, can you please give a reaction, give applause to our keynote speaker, Professor Dr. Setiono Sugiharto. Thank you very much indeed to the professor, to our keynote speaker. It is very insightful presentation, especially talking about multilingualism and multi-dialect. We would like to give certificate as appreciation to the keynote speaker from the Faculty of Teacher Training and Education and English Education Department. The committee will send by email, Prof.
Thank you.
Tolong tepuk tangan yang gemuruh. Seolah-olah ini kita inginnya luring ya, Prof. Kita beri tepuk tangan yang gemuruh untuk Profesor Dr. Setiono Sugiharto. One thing that is really, that's the final remarks is really amazed me that we need to be multi-dialectical in everyday life situation. And it's really, insightful, especially when you post the code switching and code mixing in everywhere in social situation. Thank you, Prof. Regards from us. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, now let's come to the second keynote speaker. Please welcome Dr. Udi Samanhudi, M.Pd. Dr. Udi Samanhudi, M.Pd, he earned his doctoral degree in doctorate in TESOL and Applied Linguistics, Queen's University, Belfast, United Kingdom. He earned his Master Education in English Language Education, Indonesia University of Education, UPI Bandung. And he also earned his degree in English Language Education from Yogyakarta State University. Right now, he is a senior English lecturer in English Education Department, Sultan Ageng Tirtayasa University, and he is also head of International Office in Sultan Ageng Tirtayasa University. And at present, he is also a supervisor of Bidang Hubungan Kerjasama Perguruan Tinggi, the Ministry of Education and Culture. Without further ado, please give applause to Dr. Udi Samanhudi to give his keynote speech. Hello, Pak Udi.
Hello. Yeah, Bu Dr. Aisyah, thank you very much. I'm very honored to be one of the keynote speakers, and I'm accompanying our, one of the outstanding professor in our field, Professor Setiono. This is really an honor. And we understand that multilingualism is a very interesting phenomenon. And then through the previous presentations about multilingualism issue, Prof. Setiono has again reminded us on the importance not only knowing what multilingualism is, but really understand, and probably in the future we also think about applying this issue into our pedagogy practice or teaching practice. Right. Allow me to share. Yeah, just to double check that in your screen, my slide, page 1. Yes, all right, good. Again, I would like to say thank you to my beloved colleagues at the Department of English for the opportunity. I'm really honored to be one of the keynote speakers, and this time I'm adding and enriching what Prof. Setiono has already elaborated regarding multilingualism. In the previous studies that I have conducted, and then in the current studies on research writing for publication purpose, I'm also using my multilingual lens in order to understand how research writing is written by Indonesian research article writers as multilingual writers. So my focus of presentations will be on research article writing practices among Indonesian multilingual writers in the fields of applied linguistics. And this is a small part of the current research project that I'm doing regarding research writing for publication purpose. Okay, so you have already watched in the video where our university is, but I'm sure that there are many of you who are not from Banten. Again, our university is located in 2 different cities, and then our main campus is located in Sindang Sari campus. Right, my presentations will be mostly on discussing a bit, because we have quite, limited of time to discuss the whole idea about research writing for publication from multilingual perspective. What I'm going to discuss with you is the first of all, the theoretical perspective on research article writing. My specific focus will be on, the organization and then the citations. I will also take you to some current studies on research article writing for publication purpose. What have previous researches or previous studies informed us about writing for publication among multilingual writers? And then learning a bit from my current research project on research writing among Indonesian writers, and a bit about the information on the analysis of research article written by quote-unquote native speaker of English who writes in English that publish their research articles in international, high international journals in the fields of applied linguistics. Now, my main aim for this keynote is to provide an exploration, my result of explorations of the practices and perspective of the English research article writing among Indonesian multilingual novice writers in the field of applied linguistics. So the idea of providing this practice is that to exploit in order to show to you what characterizes the writing of research article by Indonesian writers. And then the perspective here would be about the ideas, the experience, and then the understanding of Indonesian novice academics when they are writing and publishing the research article in international journals as well as in local journals in Indonesia. Now, in conducting this research, I'm so much intrigued by these two questions by Stenberg and Godiva long time ago in 1996. They raised these two questions. What makes an article influential? Okay, why do some articles have enormous impact on the fields and others practically none? There must be something different that make a certain research article is called good and convincing research articles, and then others that are not. That's why they are probably rejected by the reviewers. Okay, now I get actually insight also from White regarding the manipulations of various rhetorical and interactive features. So when we are writing a research article for publishing purpose or for our own self, satisfaction, for example, as an academic, as a researcher, we may think that, simply reporting our research is enough. Simply putting our ideas, our finding into research articles, following, like the convention, the structure of research articles, how a research article is written is enough. Well, that's actually not enough. Yeah. What is important here is that we need to understand in depth how high respected, experienced writers manipulate the rhetorical elements in research articles, and that is one of the key of their being successful in publishing their research article in high-ranking international journals, particularly in the fields of applied linguistics. So my research project has been much saved by this understanding and has been much encouraged by the idea that an understanding in depth of the manipulation of rhetorical features of research article is a means for us to be able to improve our quality of research article writing, especially for publishing in international high-ranking journals. Now, I'll ask you a little bit to get back to your experience of Googling, okay, when you are Googling, for example, research studies on research articles. I trust that you've got a lot of ideas from previous studies, what the concern or the key of many researchers in the field about research article, okay, or research on research article. Now, to my Googling, okay, I found actually many focuses of previous researchers in the field when they come to study or research in research article. This is what attracts me. The word criticality. One of the important elements in research writing for publishing is that the criticality expressions by the writers. This criticality expression by the writers is an important means for the writers to convince the reviewers that their research articles are publishable, that their research is worth publishing. So this is a way to persuade reviewers. And then an understanding of how criticality expression is created by, scholars who are more well experienced than us is always interesting as a means for us to study. And then the second is about the informality issue. That is very interesting question, from Highland, is research article now becoming more informal? So from this question, he did this research project with Jiang, and his conclusion is that although the degree of informality is in the research article, but his major finding is that research article in English is still and must be written in a formal tone. And then another interesting finding about citation is that citation is another way of making, our piece of writing more convincing. And that is why studies on citation is still very important. Like one of the focus of my studies, I will elaborate in another part of this presentation. Right. You might ask question, why research on research article? Why research article is an important means or medium for us to study about writing? Why should we bothered by doing research more and more on research article writing? I think the answer is very clear. I will not tell that this is not something that everyone don't know. I believe that every one of us knows that this is an important means for us to promote our career in the academia. Now, the doctrine, the academic doctrine called publish or perish, is not only for the Western academics. When I talk with my supervisor, I say, what do you mean by publish or perish? And she said, if I don't publish, I will die. I will not be in the academia anymore, because the majority of the evaluation for lecturers would be from his or her publication. So I think what is popular there is also very popular in our context, in which without writing, without publishing, we are nothing as an academia, okay, in the academia, as an academics, of course. So yes, research article is always an important medium to research in order to understand better how it is written by people from different background of culture, from different background of academics. Now, multilingual writers, who are they? The simple answer would be, it's us. We are not native speakers of English, quote unquote. We are someone who is using Bahasa Indonesia. I myself using Bahasa Sunda, Bahasa Indonesia in my daily conversation. Even writing, I feel more confidence and more, more confidence, and then much find it easier to write in Bahasa Indonesia or even in Bahasa Sunda. But then as an academics in the fields of English, you have to write in English. English is not anyway our language. It's installed in our mind, and then we speak, we write in that language because we are asked to do so, okay, by the system, because we are an English student, we are an English academics, we are an English professor. There are difficulties, there are challenges in writing research article in English because it's not from our context, it's not from our culture. When it comes to writing, for example, the practice of writing is much influenced by the culture where we are from. An American would be very popular with its very, structured writing by, for example, thesis writing in the first, and then all the paragraphs below this, arguments that support this thesis. And this will be different from Chinese, Indonesian, who are sometimes very implied in expressing, a meaning or a purpose. And this has impacted on the way we write, right? So this is always interesting. That's why when we do research on writing that is written by multilingual writers. As you see in the title, in the very first page or slide of my presentation, I focus on the field of applied linguistics. You might question me as well, what is that? What is applied linguistics? You are familiar with the term, but probably not that in-depth to understand it. The umbrella term of applied linguistics includes wide-ranging areas which are concerned with problems in the real world in which language is implicated. So the study of multilingualism is actually part of this applied linguistic focus, all right, if we see from this definition. So anything related to teaching and learning, critical discourse analysis, genre analysis, grammatics, corpus linguistic, multilingualism, and so on would belong or categorized to applied linguistic. Now, my lens in understanding how a research article is written is first of all through the organization of the research article in its section. When it comes to this term of organization, we would specify into move and then start. If we comes to what Swells wrote long time ago in 1990, he has come with an idea about what move is and then what steps are, as you can read in the slide. Now, I talk a lot with my supervisor at the time about which section to analyze, given the fact that in research articles, we have section like introduction, literature review, and then methodology, okay, and then conclusion. I still remember when she asked, what is to discuss? I said, to discuss is like you flow your ideas and then you talk about it. Right, okay, that is super superficial. In the context of writing, it may be more than that. So by having that, short chit chat with my supervisor at the time, I then thought about what discussion is and then try to explore the idea behind that word of discussion. All right, so then I read a lot of genre studies and then books on genre analysis, and then I came with an idea that it must be, there is a structure, there must be a way to organize a discussion, and then when it is exploited, when it is well understood, I believe that will be very useful, especially in the teaching of writing for publication purpose or writing research article for publishing purpose. So this is an example of the structure of discussion section in research article. There are 7 important moves. So when we are speaking about discussion section, there is a potential that we use 1 or 2 or 3 or even more of this move. Okay, so I will elaborate more in the finding of my study later on. But the idea is that when it comes to a writing of a section in a research article, it must have a structure. And this is a typical of organization or structure of a discussion section. Another issue, another element of research article that I think very important to understand better, to explore more, is the citation in research article writing. So citation is an issue because if we fail to practice a good citation or to put a proper way of citing references in our research articles, we may fail to publish our research article in high-ranking international journals. Part of the elements that reviewers would really put their concern, would really evaluate is citation. So I decided to also focus on this. Okay, so if you ask what is the function or what is citation, I think everyone have already known that. Okay, so it's about making references to existing relevant sources. This is just to show, actually, simply speaking, that we read a lot the idea, the topic that we are researching. Okay, so the more we cite, the much clearer idea that we are a good reader. So there is a kind of intertextuality between what we write and then what others have already published, right? So that's the importance of citation. That's why implied within the citation is that we are good readers. We understand where we locate our research. So the ability to cite appropriately is of key importance in academic writing, but it produces considerable difficulties for the novice writer. That's why I decided to also interview novice academics in Indonesia who publish their research articles in both local Indonesian and international journals. And then my focus of interview was, gaining their insight from their own practice of writing research for publication. I will elaborate this further. Now, let's speak about theory. Types of citation. We have the integral, we have non-integral. By integral, we mean that we put the source in the very front of the sentence. We have verb controlling, we have naming. Okay, so when it is about verb controlling, we put, for example, the cited actors in the beginning followed by verb. Brown and Yule point out, blah, blah, blah. And then naming when it is in the form of noun phrase. Okay, as you can see, according to Oxford 1994, blah, blah, blah. Okay, as an applied linguist, it's not enough to simply know how to put the references or how to cite. You need to understand, we need to understand what does that mean by putting Brown and Yule in the beginning. What is the impact to the persuasiveness of our writing? So that is, the things that many applied linguistics try to examine in order to understand why it is there and what it functions. Yeah. And non-integral is that when you are synthesizing all the ideas that are similar or different at the same sentence, and then you put in a bracket. Yeah. As a normal, research article writer, we may say, well, this is something that I do very frequently, and I know this. But as an applied linguistic, we will try to understand something beyond this choice of non-integral citation. So we may mean something with this. And that's what an applied linguist will need to really find out, okay? Citation function, I'm referring to Patrick, that according to me has provided a much thorough and comprehensive function. There are attribution, exemplification, further reference, statement of use, and so on. I will not, mention one by one. I trust that you'll be happy to get this PPT, so I'll send this to the committee, and the committee will send it to you. And we have also the application, evaluation, establishing links between sources, comparison with sources. What is important is that knowledging all this is, yes, important, but understanding how this function works in our research article is more important than simply, knowledging or knowing this. Okay, I will show to you how to apply this function into real research article writing, as I found from my analysis. Now, coming to the study that I conducted, and then the point of citation and then organization of writing that I have already found from my taxon analysis, and then the interview that I conducted with novice Indonesian academics regarding their experience of writing for publishing purpose. I'm not comparing. When I'm collecting data, research article from international high-ranking journals, and then from international journal based in Indonesia, my purpose is not making a comparisons, but exploring the variety of how research articles, particularly the discussion section, is written. So I collected data or research articles from these 5 popular journals in the field of applied linguistics. And then these popular 5 research article journals based in Indonesia. So again, I'm not comparing, I'm exploring the variety of patterns in terms of organization and citations in both journals. Typical of genre analysis is, collecting a small size corpora. Okay, so the small specialized corpora refer to a corpus of text of a particular type, such as research articles in particular subjects. So that's what we mean by small corpora, or small, numbers of data that we collect and analyze. This is the explanation. Compiling small size corpora is considered better than large corpora in this kind of study context, as it aims to provide insights to learners and teachers with specific learning purposes. Okay, so we want to be informed by a genre analysis, and most of the genre analysts would focus on a small size of corpora in order to focus and in-depth analyze the corpora that they have already collected or built. And I think I have already highlighted the reason why I'm interested in, discussion section, because if we see previous studies, too many, genre analysis that focus on research articles, studies, or examines introduction section, while this discussion section is quite few. So that's the very practical reasons why I'm choosing discussion section. And discussion section is considered very, very complicated, because we are trying to persuade our readers that the finding that we produce from our research is important for them. Okay, so there is an argument that we need to create. There is, a support or comments that we need to produce in order to provide with our readers with an in-depth results of analysis. So that's the reason why I'm focusing my study on discussion section. So what I found, this is my very interesting finding. I think because the Indonesian writers are now much more exposed to, good examples of research article writing, or at least many universities in Indonesia have already, subscribed into, important websites that provide free journals and so on for their lecturers. I see that there is that much significant, difference in terms of variation in writing discussion section. So in the MOVE structure of the discussion that I have already mentioned before, reporting result, commenting on results are the heart of the discussion section. So if you write a discussion section, you find no comment on your results, it may be poor discussion section, because to my analysis, to my exploration, reporting result, commenting results are the heart, okay? So if you see this one, it's not background information, it's not summarizing results, it's not summarizing the study, evaluating the study. That is the heart. The heart is that this reporting results and commenting results, which means that if you do not put one of this, I'm afraid that your discussion section is considered poor discussion section. Yeah, okay. And in terms of citation, there is a different, or there is variation in terms of citation practice. In highly reputed international journals, most of the writers use non-integral citation because it is quite complicated. We analyze, we synthesize, we put similar ideas all together. So it's much more complicated and need more energy in order to understand what's similar between A and B and C, and then we put together. Okay, while in the journal that is based in Indonesia, I find more integral citation, which is actually much simpler. When you say Brown 1990 says that, or when Brown mentioned that, that's an example of integral citation. Okay, two most dominant function: attribution and comparison. Yeah, so you can attribute, which means that you mention, or you make a kind of comparison with other sources in order to show where your position is. Okay, I have already provided you with the explanation, and this is the example of how attribution or comparisons are provided by the writers when they are writing their discussion section. So what could be inferred? The MOVE analysis has clearly indicated that reporting results and commenting on results, as I have mentioned before, are the hearts of the discussion section in both journals of different background. And the presentations of MOVE and SET is cyclical, right? So there is no, strict schemata in order to write the discussion section. This could be cyclical: MOVE 1 to MOVE 2, and then MOVE 4, and then we get back to MOVE 1, and so on. So it's very much cyclical. And this finding supports an idea that one text schema by Hakim could be proposed to fit all of the text is relatively questionable. All right, so your creativity as a writer, okay, is super important in making a good discussion section, a discussion section that is persuasive, that is making your readers know what you mean, okay. What could be inferred from the citation? Discussion section in the analyzed articles published in International Journal of Applied Linguistics were found to succinctly synthesize various sources by making greater use of non-integral citation. Meanwhile, more integral citation is employed in the Indonesian Local Journal of Applied Linguistics by attributing whole responsibility to a single source or a source cited. So I think this is an important result of my exploration. I see that most expert writers that publish their writing in high reputed journals, they use more non-integral citation, which is considered actually more critical. Okay, so theoretically speaking, non-integral citation is one that is considered more critical because the writer should go through the process of analysis, synthesize theories, and put them together. You are doing an evaluation in order to put, different perspective that has almost similarities. Yeah, it needs your critical thought to put that. What could be inferred from Finding number 3, the dominant use of two citation function to attribute and to compare with other sources has brought further evidence that in soft sciences, citations are used to advance the credibility and the acceptability of the proposed claims by especially expert members of the discourse community. So because we are in the fields of education, in the social science fields in general, most of our writing would typically refer to what others have already found, and then we really show to others that we are informed by others. Okay, we are really informed. Our work has much been informed by previous researchers. So that's actually, yes, a typical of research article written by those working in the fields of education, to be specific, and in social science in general. Okay. I'll spend in 10 minutes or less than 10 minutes for the rest of my findings from small studies that I conduct with academics, young academics from multilingual context, that is Indonesia, okay, regarding their experience of writing for publication. Okay, so why early career academics are important? They are so far ignored. Their voice are rarely heard, okay, by many researchers. Most researchers would focus on what, high-ranking scholars, what high-ranking academics talk about research article writing, and then their suggestion, their advice would then be followed. But we forget that early career academics have the experience of writing, and there is value, there is lessons that we can learn from this practice, from their experience. So that's the reason why I involve early career academics in my research project, because it's quite ignored in previous studies. And then in this study, I get a lot of ideas about what research writing is, and then what hurdles or barriers that most, novice academic writers find when they're writing research articles. So I'm interested in understanding what they think about writing in international journals. And what they said is, quite interesting when they say, I'm anxious, I'm nervous, because I always think that my research topic is outdated already, and sometimes think that the way I present my data and finding is not good yet, And this finding always implies something. When we take this into, further thinking about pedagogical implication, so we need to think about how to provide our students with most current topics of research in the field. So that's also part of our business as an academics. We show our students where to go and what are, popular or dated, up-to-date issues or topics in our fields. Yeah. And then publishing in Indonesian-based English journals, this is probably not correct 100%. Yeah. When one of my participants said it is much easier to publish in Indonesian local English journals because it seems that the review process is not as strict as those review process of the international high-ranking journals. It is also very often the case that the journal team members ask for my research article publication in the journals, especially those journals published in my own university. Okay, he is one of the lecturers in a university in Indonesia. So this process of review that is not strict doesn't give any lesson at all to young academics in Indonesia. They would say, well, I'm published already, I'm successful in publishing, but it's actually, in reality, they don't learn because there is no good feedback given by the reviewers. And that's what makes the participants say that their understanding about research article writing is not that deep. The challenges, to my experience so far, no good review system. So this is still in line with the previous one, because there is no good review system in most journals based in Indonesia. Most of the participants say that they don't learn a lot. There is no challenge of writing research articles because once they write, they submit, it's published. Okay, especially when they have to pay, for example. So it's only money that they have to spend, and no learning at all from the process. So this is part of the challenges, and this is very interesting because this is an indirect, not good practice of publication when there is no strict review in our journals, in our local Indonesian context. There is no good lessons that we can provide to our potential writers that could publish their writing in a much better fashion and written. And strategies, this is also very interesting to me. At least I learned a lot from comments and feedback, especially from reviewers of high reputed international journals. When I submitted my research article to those journals, she was rejected, but she said because she tried to submit in high ranking international journals, she got lots of feedbacks, comments, why she was rejected. But from those constructive feedbacks, from those reviews, she learned a lot. Okay, so this is the benefit of mingling with the community of discourse or discourse community members who are more expert than us. For example, reviewers of international journals, they could provide us with lessons indirectly or directly through our efforts of publishing in that journal. With that feedback from them, we will learn a lot. And this has been evidenced by one of the participants. Citation, yeah, when I write, I tend to use citation that support my finding and also that's in contradictory to the finding. So this is a good understanding as shown by my participants. He has already understood that when you are providing your claim, it's not only those that supports are put there, but those who are contradictory, and then you battle the two ideas and then you show where your position is. So the learned lesson, genre analysis will always be very important, but most important than that is that we think about the benefit that the result of this genre analysis could inform our pedagogy, right? So the writing of publication, the experience of writing for publishing in both local and international journals that I learned from this project is that there is always pattern, there is always way of writing a research article, and there is always an influence of knowing and not knowing. There is always an influence of culture of writing, culture of thinking in the process of writing research articles. And genre analysis results like this will be very important to inform the practice of researchers, the practice of lecturers when they are teaching research article writing to their students. So that's all from me. Thank you very much. Hatur nuhun. Terima kasih. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much, Pak Udi. Hatur nuhun pisan. Ini udah multilingual ya. This is a very insightful presentation from Dr. Udi Samanhudi, especially about research writing. And most of the participants here are graduate and postgraduate students, and they really need to publish their research thesis. So this is very insightful. And one thing that I note from your speech today, publish or perish. And I think all of you should note that we need to publish our research thesis because everybody needs to read our research journey, and they will be inspired by our research, our results of the research. Am I right, Pak Dr. Udi?
True.
Yes. Okay, I think I won't give final remarks. It's really clear from you about the research journey that we need to do it. And after doing the research, try to publish it and give some information to the people around the world. Give a big applause to our keynote speaker today, Dr. Udi Samanhudi, M.Pd. Thank you very much indeed for your insightful presentation, Pak Dr. Udi.
Thank you.
Oleh peserta Zoom untuk memberikan reaction, ada tanda jempol, ada tanda tepuk tangan. Silakan. Yeah, okay. As our appreciation, English Education Department would like to give certificate of appreciation to Dr. Udi Samanhudi as a keynote speaker.
Thank you.
Mohon diterima.
Sangat diterima, hatur nuhun.
Oke, thank you Pak Dr. Udi.
Thank you, Pak Aisyah.
Sekali lagi terima kasih banyak untuk Pak Dr. Udi Samanhudi dan juga Profesor Dr. Setiono Sugiharto for keynote speaker as a keynote speaker this morning. Give a very big applause again to those two speakers today. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Now let's go to the next plenary session.
All right, thank you, Ma'am Siti Aisyah. After two amazing keynote speakers, there will be plenary speakers. He is Dr. Aziz Jafar Siddiq, M.Pd, but we would like to invite the moderator for the session. Please welcome Dr. Ahmad Baihaqi, M.Pd, as the moderator. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Well, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, all respected speakers, participants, and also the keynote speaker of this conference. Now we have 7th Annual International Seminar of English Language Teaching, and our recent agenda now is about the plenary session, and the first plenary speech will be delivered by he has a full name, Udi Jafar Siddiq. He was born in Tasikmalaya 45 years ago, and his undergraduate degree earned from Universitas Islam Nusantara Bandung in English education, and in 2004 has a master degree from University of Canberra, Australia in TESOL, and has doctoral degree from Venus University of Belfast, United Kingdom in TESOL. His research interest is about research with young children, English material development, and also about multimodality and multiliteracies. And of course, the topic that he will discuss in our conference today is about multimodality. So without further ado, please welcome to our first plenary speaker, Dr. Udi Jafar Siddiq. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Baihaqi, for your time. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, all participants. Thank you for staying and joining my session this morning. This is my honor to participate in this seminar. So my gratitude to the committee as well. All right, so just let me share the screen, please. Okay, because I think I have about 30 to 45 minutes, so I just would like to go to my presentation. The title of my presentation today is Mediating Multilingualism through Multimodality, Challenges from Indonesian English Classroom Practices. So first of all, the focus of my presentation today would be on multimodality, but I would like to try to relate briefly to the issue of multilingualism because our conference, our seminar here, bringing this topic as the main issue. Okay, so first of all, I would like to make sure that everyone has the same perspective. What is multilingualism? So the term multilingualism can be understood from two different contexts. So the first one, it refers to the characteristic of a place, a society, or classroom where many languages are used or spoken. So if we take English classroom in Indonesian context as the example, we can suggest that there would be more than two languages. Let's say English as the language of the subject, and then Indonesian language as our national language or language of schooling, and also maybe one or more local languages as our student mother tongue. So from this, we can say that most English classroom in Indonesia are possibly multilingual classroom. And then the second meaning of multilingualism refers to the characteristic of people, a person, or an individual who is capable of using diversity or variety of language. For example, if one of you can speak Indonesian, English, or maybe one or more local languages, then you are said as multilingual. Despite that, the Council of Europe distinguished between these two definitions. In this case, for the first definition, Council of Europe use multilingualism, while for the second definition refer to plurilingualism. Now, the question that maybe you might ask, or I personally ask as well, would be why we have to be very concerned about multilingualism. Well, variety of languages available in the classroom should become useful resources for our instruction, no matter whether it is English or maybe other foreign languages. These resources can be used to engage our students more on literacy. So this is very important because some studies have shown how, for example, literacy engagement has a strong correlation with literacy achievement. For example, Kumin here identified that PISA studies have consistently reported a strong relationship between reading engagement and reading achievement among 15-year-old students in countries around the world. So meaning, the more we can engage our students in literacy, including in English learning activities, the more likely their literacy achievement will improve. And then one more thing that is very interesting for me, the study from Sunan et al., they found out that the foreign language writing skills learned at school are highly correlated with the writing skill in a mother language. So this gives us confidence that variety of languages available in the classroom that our students speak or use in their daily life can be contributing to our English instruction. Now, I would like to move to what is multimodality. So before I elaborate what multimodality is, I have two questions that I would like to try to answer in the rest of my discussion. So the first one would be, how do we communicate? Whether we communicate only through language or we also communicate through any other means of language or any other language, any other form of language. The second question that I would like to try to elaborate is, how do we know or understand something? So do we know or understand something only through language mean or through language text, or we can also know or understand something from any other form of text? Okay, so what is multimodality basically? So this is the concept relating to communication practices in digital environment where communication is made not only through language as the only source of meaning, but also through other meaning-making resources. To mention some, for example, visual, oral, gestural, spatial, and could be the combination of two or more of this mode. All right, for example, I have the picture with me here. And the question would be, what kind of information we can get from these pictures? Okay, so if we rely only on language-based literacy, surely we cannot get anything important from these two pictures. But from multimodal lens, we can get rich information from this picture. All right, so for example, using multimodal lens, we can find out the possible relation between the participant and also the level of intimacy or the level of closeness between this participant. In a picture, for example, we can suggest that the participant do not know each other. They might just come across in a certain place and one person asks the direction or asks a building, for example. And how do we know that? We can use spatial mode here, where, for example, the distance between one speaker of another is quite wide. More than that, we can also see how, for example, in terms of formality, how, for example, the person speak more formally, indicating that they don't, it could be indicating that they do not know each other. They are only strangers. So in contrast, okay, picture B, we can say that these two participants, these two persons likely know each other, but not only know each other, but then the degree of the relation is quite close. It's quite intimacy. How do we know that? We can have a look, for example, using a spatial mode, that they are quite compatible to walk hand by hand. And not only that, for example, the way they speak is more casual than the picture on B. So we can see that from this picture and using multimodal lens, then we can get more information. And it is beyond what we can do with language-based literacy. So what is then, okay, so when we interpret the picture like what I did, we do not, of course, interpret those resources as we like. Because like a language, these resources, our visual, gestural, and then spatial, they are formed not arbitrarily or in the interest of what you like, but they are bound by rules, by pattern. So this is the reason why multimodality also need to be considered in the curriculum. Now, the question would be, why then multimodality can mediate multilingualism? So first of all, conceptually, multimodality and multiliteracies was introduced to address diversity of languages all over the world, as well as the diversity of meaning-making resources that we use in daily practice. More than that, okay, multimodal approach can exploit student multicultural and multilingual backgrounds as resourceful meaning in a language teaching and learning. For example, instead, we provide our student material relating to Rapunzel, for example, Peter Pan or Cinderella, then we can bring the material that would be more familiar for them. Like, let's say, for example, in Banten case, we have local stories like Talaga Warna or Batu Kubu or Gunung Pinang and many others. Then that would be more familiar for them. So that would be more possible for them to engage more in our activity. In English pedagogy in particular, multimodal approach can also bring out the multilingual and multicultural characteristic of English by facilitating students' learning in a culturally and socially situated environment. Okay, again, through multimodal approach, we can, for example, bring example how, for example, foreign language use English, how, for example, Malaysian people use English, how, for example, Korean people use English. Then they can learn each other. Then they also can build their awareness that we have some diversity. And indeed, okay, in Indonesian context, I think most of school would apply, let's say, English, American-based English. But then the question would be, do we really use our English to talk with American people? In practice, I think not necessarily, because most of the time we use our English, we use our American model English that we learn at school only to talk with, for example, people from Vietnam, people from Thai, people from Japan, and many others. And it is very rare that we use our American English to talk with American people. So that's why, for example, Chana Ragaja and Matsuda suggest that learning English or teaching English, just focusing on specific model of English, like English of American English or British English, is not sufficient to embrace the diversity of Englishes all over the world. Okay, now why is multimodality? All right, so multimodality, as I said before, is closely related to digital communication environment. And the advancement of these digital technologies has changed the communication environment as well as the literacy practices in the society. One that I have mentioned before, that language in this case is only one part that we use in communication. We also use other meaning-making resources, to mention some oral, visual, etc. Apart from that, literacy practices has changed significantly. For example, Kress here identify two revolutionary shifts in literacy practice in society. First one, from a writing mode dominant to an image mode dominant. And then from a book medium dominance to a new screen medium dominant. Now, if I want to ask you, for example, if you have perspective, if you have opinion, or if you have complaint, for example, let's say you want to complain about the food that you order online. So do you deliver your complaint by writing letter, paper, and pencil, and then send to the sellers? Or you just go to your social media, take a picture, show the bad thing from the food, and boom. Not only it is more efficient, but the impact can be very instant. So that would be one revolution in literacy practices. And then the second one, from medium dominant to a new screen medium dominant. Now, how do you spend your time most? Do you spend your time more on reading book, for example, open page by page, or you open from screen, from TV, from a laptop, from mobile phone, etc.? Then I would sure that you would spend most of your time reading from a screen. So this is actually the reality, that the shift or in literacy practices is quite significant. All right, I have a video, okay, to show how, for example, literacy practices happen in our society. And in this case, I also want to test how knowledgeable we are compared to these young children on certain things. Yeah. So I got this video from a TikTok. This is very short video. But before I play the video, I would like you maybe to answer your question, to answer if some of you know this person, would you mind to write down on the chat? Just ignore maybe the first picture, just focus on the second and the third picture. So if you know who are these guys, would you mind to write down in the chat? Or if you don't know, you just write down no idea or don't know. So I can maybe get some ideas about your knowledge about these people. Anyone? I haven't got the answer yet. Okay, so I got some answer that you have no idea who are this guy. Okay, now I would like to compare how our knowledge compared to this the kid that I have presented before. Okay, so allow me to maybe show the video.
Yang bisa nebak foto pertama dapat donat ya. Ini siapa? Oh, kalau ini? Siapa? Bapak B.J. Habibie. Kalau ini tau? Andin. Anak Amanda Manopo. Ini tau? Bapak Presiden. Siapa ini? Hatta. Hah? Hatta Halilintar. Kiai. Kiai siapa? Haji. Haji siapa? Tahu? Tapi Ahmad. Kiai Haji Habibie. Oh ini? Tapi Ahmad. Tahu siapa ini? Kiai Haji Ma'ruf Amin. Tahu ini? Prof. Sulaiman. Kiai Haji Ma'ruf Amin. Ini? Arya Saloka. Amin ya lolat. Ada tahu ini siapa? Hah? Oh ini? Kalau ini? Andin.
Okay, all right. So from let me check. Okay, so all right. So let's check who are they. Okay, so they are actually gaming YouTubers, Aci Games Food, and also Pros Diamond. So I think most of us here have no idea who are this guy. Of course, I'm very sure that everyone know the first person. Okay, now the question would be why they are more knowledgeable than us, especially in this kid, in this context, which in the past it is very unlikely that our kid will know better than us. For example, in 2000 or maybe before that, it is very unlikely that our kid will know than us, will know better than us. Okay. But this time, they can know something that we don't know. Okay, so are these kids capable of reading? Surely, I'm not sure if this kid can read, or if they can read, at least they are not fluent enough. But then the question will be why then they can get information that we don't know. How do they get this information, this knowledge? And what literacy preference do they use to get knowledge or information? Okay, of course, some of you would say that they get information from YouTube, from maybe TikTok, from Instagram, from Facebook, etc. Yes, that could be, okay? Indeed, we also use those kind of social media. But the point here, why they are more knowledgeable than we are. So in this case, the difference, basically, yeah, we mostly use language-based literacy as our preference to get knowledge, to get information, which is very contrast with them. In this case, they would like to, or they prefer to use multimodal literacy as their preference to get knowledge, to get information. Okay, so that would be the realities, what is happening in our society. So is there any other reason why multimodality is relevant in language classroom? So digital technology has changed the structures of social powers from vertical to more horizontal, from hierarchical to more participatory. That would be Kalansis and Cope and also Kress. For example, relating to, so in this case, the power gap between producer and consumer is decreasing, being replaced by a balance of agency. For example, in tech-making authorship, who in the past can write textbook, for example? I'm sure only scholars, only experts maybe had authority to write books, to write textbook. But right now, who can write textbook? Everyone can write. Housewife can write. Student can write a book. Artists can write book. This more participatory rather than vertical horizontal. And then information content creation or news production. Who in the past created news or produced news? Well, in the past, of course, news production was the mind of professional, in this case, journalists. But right now, everyone can create news. Everyone can, create information, information-related content based on their interest. This is the reality. Or what do you want to be? Being an artist, being a singer, or being a comedian. Right now, you don't need to go for a competition. You don't need to go for audition. If you have a talent, if you have creativity, then you can become artist, singer, comedian on your own way. For example, if you are good in singing, then you can sing, you can maybe cover other song and then publish in YouTube. And then if, for example, your singing is very good, then after a while, I'm sure you will be popular. So this is what is happening right now. And then also the decreasing between customers and consumer, producer and customer. As I said before, in the past, who create the news and who become the customer of the news? So in the past, we are just customer of the news and the journalist as creator, as producer of the news. But right now, it is quite often that the journalist, professional journalists, get ideas from the news that maybe public share and then created or reproduce the news for their own purposes, from our company, for example. Again, this is the reality. So, because this is what is happening in our student daily life and also in our communication practices, what then education should be? So, in this case, ideally, school should reflect what community is, what community need. The school should accommodate what the business want for them. The school should be accommodating what our students need. Indeed, relating to literacy education, then literacy in education ideally should be reflecting literacy in youth, in the society. Okay? So meaning that if our community use multimodal based literacies, ideally school classroom should also employ multimodal based literacy. So considering this, I think gladly our government realized that this is the challenges of our students. So the Ministry of Education and Culture has launched the School Literacy Movement Program, recommending the integration of multimodality into classroom instruction, including English classroom. And one of the statement is that the policy expect or suggest the expanding concept of literacy from multimodal, from print-based or language-based literacy into multimodal-based literacy. For example, I translated and quote from the document. The term text in literacy can be in many forms of written, spoken, visual, auditory, audio-visual, spatial, nonverbal. The form of text can be digital and non-digital. Therefore, the term reading used in literacy activities has also to refer to this broader concept. So this is the policy. Very, very good policy. But the question will be how this policy work or implemented in language classroom practices. And for this, I did the study involving three classrooms from three schools in Pandeglang and Serang. And I would like to address this research question. For example, the first one, to what extent is multimodality represented in English language teaching material? And how is multimodality used in English language teaching, whether it is aimed at supporting print-based teaching or at developing student multimodal literacy? And then to what extent does the use of multimodality in English language teaching encourage students to engage with multimodality? And I use multiple case study for this one. As I said, I did study in 2 schools from Pandeglang and one school in Pandeglang and 2 schools in Serang. And the data consisted of classroom observation, interview with teacher, and teaching and learning document, which I analyzed using content and multimodal analysis. And what would be the result? Relating to multimodal representation in language teaching material, I found out that all teachers employ multimodality in English teaching material, particularly in this case, image and video song. But mostly this multimodality used in the beginning of lesson, just to make sure that students get interested with the lesson. And then the primary source of multimodality, mostly books, so that it is quite often when the book, for example, do not provide any multimodal samples, then the teacher sometimes also decided not to use multimodality. And sometimes teacher also use supplementary sources of multimodality, and in this case, mostly from YouTube. Next to the second question, how multimodality used in language classroom? Because as I said before, that teacher employ multimodality, but in this case, multimodality is only brought into the classroom, but not yet brought into the instruction. So in this case, yes, multimodality in the classroom, but actually in language, in the activity, in learning activity, there is no rule whatsoever what the teacher about how the teacher, for example, use multimodality. This also evident because the focus of instruction remain on English. And in all cases, in this case, multimodality is only used as instructional tools or media instead of resources for teacher to develop student multimodal literacy. And in this case, as I said before, the use of multimodality is only limited to, let's say, improve student interest and also to improve the participant in English lesson, but the focus remain on English lesson. For example, here, when I observe one of the class, and then the material is about product labels, and the real material is on the left, and then on the right would be the way teacher explain about the material, about the product. And if you see the arrows, all the arrow only pointing to the language-based literacy, nothing, for example, discuss about, for example, other non-linguistic resources, particularly, for example, here we have images, we have color, for example. And this is also evident from the interaction between teachers and students. For example, what is the brand of the product? And then name of the product, children code syrup, description, etc. Nothing to do with other visual element that in this case, very significant to give meaning to the whole text of this product level. Okay, and then student engagement with multimodality. Okay, all the multimodality is sometimes used in design classroom learning activity, but again, as we mentioned before, the focus of this remain on English. And the students sometimes engage with oral, visual, and gestural, but their engagement is more incidental rather than deliberately designed to encourage students to engage with multimodality as well, especially as alternative meaning resources. So my conclusion, for example, not conclusion basically. So from this finding, generally the integration of multimodality employed by the teacher has not fulfilled the expectation of the policy, in this case, school literacy movement policy, that suggests the expanding concept of literacy from print-based into multimodal literacy. Yes, multimodality is available in the classroom, but I said it's only brought into instruction, not into curriculum. And what would be the challenges? The challenges that I found from these three classroom, first of all, would be teacher misconception about multimodality. Some teacher would say that multimodality is the same as multimedia. Some teacher also, one teacher also said that multimodality is about using projector, etc. And then teacher workload. Well, of course, in this case, relating to teacher commitment to invest their time and work to provide better instruction by providing, for example, better material, better resources. And then this is also quite dominant, teacher pragmatism. The teacher only think what the curriculum asks them to do. And sometimes they ignore what is better, ideal, or a must for the student. They would be focusing on what the curriculum asks. Because I think to a certain extent, I can understand it. Because otherwise, for example, if they cannot complete all the material, then there would be consequences for the teachers. And then of course, the last one, I would say that teacher skill and knowledge to operate digital resources or facilities are still lacking. So this is the conclusion that I can synthesize from my research. So the first one, as I said before, the integration of multimodality in English classroom practices has not fulfilled the expectation of the school for literacy policy, school literacy movement policy. And then at the same time, the integration of multimodality has not also addressed the demand of digital communication environment. And then the next one would be multimodality is only brought at into the classroom, but not yet brought into instruction, into curriculum, because the focus of instruction remain on how to get English-based goal. Multimodality is only used as instructional tool or media instead of facilitating students to develop their multimodal literacy. And then the last one, no learning activity or task used to engage students with multimodality as meaning-making resources, either in classroom or outside classroom, like homework, for example. So a recommendation for me, of course, if the government still expect that this policy can work in the classroom practice, of course, the policy reform is required, especially, for example, how multimodality should become compulsory instead of just recommendation. And then assessment should also not only focus on linguistic aspect, but also other literacy aspect. For example, how student work in visual can also mark as based on what they can show, but based on what can they perform. And then more authority for teachers as decision maker in the classroom. And maybe this would be my imagination. Assessment, national examination should be possibly for teachers rather than for students. Okay, and this is my reference. And one thing, for example, as we know that I think this is quite interesting, and I was wondering what is the impact? What is the factor why, for example, students want to risk their life just to make a content? Basically, they want to be recognized by their peers, by their colleges, by their friend, by public, but they don't have any idea what to do. The only thing they can do is just to risk their life. And this should be responsibility of education. So they do this because education cannot facilitate them to be creative, to be engaged in the community, to be engaged with literacy practices they usually do. So that I think what is happening. I think that's all my presentation. Thank you very much. I will be back to moderator.
Participant of the conference, I'd like to ask you to all turn on your mic and give applause to our first plenary speakers, Dr. Ejis Jafar Siddiq. Give applause for him. Okay, thank you very much. Dr. Ejis, we have a questions regarding your topic. And of course, when we talk about multilingualism, this is not the newest notion for us. However, when we talk about the notion of multimodality, for me, myself, this is one of the new stuff, of course. And we have seen in your presentation that it has closely relationship about multimodality to digital technologies. So the first question from Pak Saifuddin Amir from Universitas Sulawesi Barat. He asked about the code switching and code mixing is one problem-based learning in English. So how is the effect to multimodality? And in this case, how to prevent the effect of in English process learning English? So he asked about the notion of code switching and code mixing, and then also the effect to the ELT.
Okay.
That's the question from Mr. Saifuddin Amir, Universitas Sulawesi Barat.
Okay, so thank you very much, Pak Saifuddin Amir, for your question. Very interesting because this is what is happening in classroom practices. I mean, many teachers are quite desperate to use English because the students don't know how to explain, for example, and the only alternative way they, for example, mix up their languages. Well, yes, this is the reality, but again, multimodality can mediate, or can, if we suggest that using code mixing as the burden for our student learning English, then multimodality can, for example, minimize the use of code mixing. For example, if we mention about colors, red, for example, instead of, for example, saying merah, then we can, for example, show the visual, okay? Because I think no matter what our student language is, the perception about color would more and less similar, okay? So the only way to saying color is red, or in student is, for example, burung, okay, can be mediated by using multimodality in this case. For example, just showing color. So this is red. So do you know what is red color? Can you, for example, mention what things that usually have red color, for example? That's maybe one of the alternative. Hopefully that would be answering the question.
Okay, thank you. Second one, the question, yeah, especially the question delivered to not only for Dr. Ejis, but also Dr. Udi still in the room. No, all right. From second question, Dr. Ejis from Mr. Siswana from Universitas Negeri Jakarta. He asked about the terms of regional dialect and also the use of modern versus the vernacular can have the impact of for the translation, for the interpretation, as well as the usage and style. So still the notion of multimodality in this case, the impact of those terms to translation and interpretation.
Can you,
from Mr. Siswana from Jakarta State University.
Okay, can you say one more time, Dr. Bayhaki? What is the question? Sorry, maybe my connection.
Mr. Siswana, you can ask directly to Dr. Ejis as our first plenary speaker, please, Mr. Siswana, and you can ask the question directly.
Please, Mr. Siswana.
Okay, thank you,
Or maybe
Aziz.
we can use English because
Actually, the question is for Professor Setiono, but I think that perhaps you can enlighten me about the data of code mixing, code mixing or code switching based on the data shown by Professor Setiono. Like, for example, the word take away, actually it is from the transcription of take away. So what do you think about it? Is it belong to other category or the same category in code mixing or like, thank you, Pak Aziz.
Okay, so I think the idea, this is the reality, what, for example, community use language, in particular use English in daily practices. And it could be possible that after a while we have maybe certain model of English, like for example, Singaporean English, like Korean English, like Indian English, which may be quite contrast if we compare to American English. So maybe just let me mention first. So what is basically the purpose of our student learning English? Okay, so of course in this case to communicate. But again, the communication can be done maybe orally or in writing. And of course, maybe in terms of language use in this context, like what you mentioned, maybe it's not yet acknowledged as maybe the category of correct English. But I give you example, for example, if you join the IELTS test, okay, which designed by British Council, and supposedly they would, let's say, mostly relate, I mean, the design of test would be more about focusing on British English. But when, for example, the test takers use American English, they will accept it. So this is maybe one step that in formal test design, even informal test design, they try to accommodate the diversity of Englishes. Yes, of course, what you asked before, it's still in the area of okay, so I think okay, sorry, I think all right, so here we go. Okay, sorry for that's all right. Where I'm going. Okay, so where are we? Okay, so we haven't acknowledged actually, I mean, the idea of global Englishes, it's still in the theoretical ground, not yet in practical ground. So meaning, yes, I cannot predict, for example, when it would be, let's say, agree as the consensus that we have to embrace all this one. So it's only a matter of, this is theoretically, some scholar would suggest that it is not relevant anymore to teach specific model of English in our classroom, because for practical purposes, especially communication, people don't use English most of the time to talk between non-native speaker versus non-native speaker, instead of non-native speaker versus native speaker. So that would be the idea why they would say that it is not relevant anymore to focus on specific model of English, like in Indonesian context, for example, only focusing on American English or British English. But again, relating to your question, I think yes, I think our perception still cannot accept that this should be bring into our classroom as the, but to certain, yeah, as the example how language is used. That may be my my answer. Hopefully it helped.
All right, thank you, Dr. Ajis. I think this is a very interesting topic. However, and because of limited time, we have to continue to the next agenda, our panel session. And last but not least, I'd like to say thank you very much for your materials regarding the notion of multimodality. And this is a very interesting topic, since so many questions asked about the topic. However, we have very limited time, so next agenda is a panel session, and we'd like to inform you to deliver about the token of appreciation from the committee of 7 AISELT. Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Ajis Jamar Siddiq.
For your time, thank you very much for your opportunity, the committee.
All right, see you next in the campus, yeah. We're waiting for so long.
All right. Okay, see you. Thank you.
Give applause for Dr. Ajis Jamar Siddiq as the first plenary speaker for our conference today. And for me myself, thank you very much. See you next. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam
warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you Dr. Aziz dan juga Dr. Ahmad Baihaqi. The next agenda is panel session or paper presenter. There will be 9 breakout rooms, so all paper presenters and participants, please join the breakout rooms. Is on the chat box. You guys can see in the chat box. Ma'am Ika Handayani and team will assign you to the room.
Okay.
Ibu Ika Handayani, the coordinator.
Okay, in each
Please
yes,
join
yes.
out room.
Yes, I would like to join the break room. Thank you, Ibu Siti Aisyah.
Okay, Bu Ika, thank you.
Okay, in each room there will be coordinator for the room, so you can log or join the breakout room and yeah.
Bu Ika Handayani, can you take over to give announcement about the room? Ya, oh, udah masuk. Oh ya udah.
Udah masuk.
Para hadirin semua, selamat melakukan presentasi di ruangan breakout room masing-masing dari pukul 11.15 hingga 12.30 karena ini mulainya 11.20, kemungkinan selesainya 12.40. Istirahat, nanti kembali lagi ke main room pada pukul 13.15. Zoom tetap on. Demikian, selamat melakukan presentasi dan kepada para partisipan, pada para peserta boleh memasuki breakout room sesuai dengan minat masing-masing.